Welcome to Coping Together, Mental Health Association of Central Florida's live web series dedicated to helping you develop coping strategies and wellness tools related to COVID-19, as well as talk about mental health. Coping Together was created in response to COVID-19's mandatory social distancing orders. This show seeks to learn and educate. We do not speak for any particular group. Overall, Coping Together serves as a platform through which we can demystify and unpack mental health concepts and hear from experts in the field. Please note that this show may discuss sensitive topics, including but not limited to sexual assault, suicide, and various traumas. If you find yourself feeling upset or struggling during any episode, listen to your body and pause the input. We will post related resources. Remember, it's okay to get help.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Coping Together. I'm your host, Faith, with the Mental Health Association of Central Florida, here to talk to you about all things related to mental health, COVID-19, and how we're all going to get through this journey together. And today I'm very excited to talk about one of my kind of favorite topics, which is being kind to ourselves and practicing self-compassion, especially as we go into the new year. And I think that I couldn't ask for better guests. I have Juanita Carbajal, who we've brought back. She's the Community Relations Director from Positive Behavioral Solutions. And joining her today is Miranda Johnson, who's the Clinical Manager with Positive Behavioral Solutions. So how are you both doing today?
Thank you. Doing great. Thanks for inviting us back, Faith.
Absolutely. How are you, Miranda?
I'm doing well today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Today's a good day. There's been days that aren't so good, and I think that that's probably a good segue into why it's important to be kind to ourselves. And I guess the term for that would be self-compassion. And so, what exactly is self-compassion? I think is a good first question.
Yeah, so I can take that one. So for self-compassion, we're really looking at how we're talking to ourselves in a way that is grounding. So we're not, a lot of people will speak in a way that's self-pity, or it talks in a negative, egocentric way where they're saying like, poor me. And self-compassion really looks at it from a way of saying, hey, everyone is imperfect. Everyone is struggling right now. Everyone is going through these kind of life changes together. So it really is unifying. It's looking at it through a different perspective, and a perspective that allows you to connect to yourself, to connect to the people that are around you, and recognize that there's so much that you can do, and there's so much that you're capable of in the self-kindness, in the mindfulness, and recognizing what's going on in humanity. So for me, that's when I think of self-compassion, that's what I think of it as, is being grounded to the community that you're in, but also being kind to yourself.
So I guess the term for me that comes to mind is the phrase like, we are all our own worst critic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of realizing that everybody is kind of their own worst critic, and just being considerate of that. Like you said, we're all imperfect. That's, I think, one of the staples of the human race. But that it's okay. And that, like you said, to be recognizing of that everybody's kind of going through their own kind of experience in regards to that. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, and I think right now we're in a different kind of phase of self-compassion going into the new year. We're looking at a lot of people are feeling like it's a fresh start. A lot of people are very excited because 2020 has been extra heavy for a lot of us.
That was a good way to describe it.
The election, with kind of everything that's going on, I think there's a lot of people that are excited about the new year happening, but being grounded in that and setting intentions in that, and having compassion for yourself through that journey.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a great kind of segue into my next question, which is kind of, why is it important to have self-compassion for ourselves, maybe now more than ever?
Yeah. Well, kind of to piggyback on what you guys have been saying, like, it's the end of the year. A lot of us are reflecting on, what our year looked like, our expectations versus reality. Obviously, a lot of that differs because there was so many roadblocks along the way with COVID, social distancing restrictions. Our goals may have not turned out the way we anticipated or we were looking forward to. And I think the start of a new decade, 2020, we had all these like excitement and anticipations with graduations, weddings, celebrations, new milestones that a lot of us are grieving that we weren't able to fully celebrate and be present for those that we love that are celebrating that. So self-compassion is also, reflecting on your milestone, the journey. Like the journey it looks different. So be okay with, this is how life is right now. It's not going to be like this forever. There's been progress as far as changes that have been made to like be a little bit more open of, like family dynamics, work dynamics. So there has been some positive changes that we also need to like acknowledge and like express some gratitude for ourselves as well.
I absolutely agree with you. And one thing that kind of goes back is I have a good friend who's a mom, and I remember in about mid-year in about July was kind of upset with herself. And I remember she said to me, I'm not, I'm working from home. I'm not able to give my child as much direct attention as I want to. And then one of the things she said to herself is, but I have to remember that this year is so different and that I've had to give myself a little bit of grace. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you, is that with everything that's kind of happened, it's important for us to kind of give ourselves a little bit of grace. Like you said, we went into 2020 with expectations. For some of us, it was graduations, it was weddings. And we've kind of had to roll with the punches. We kind of haven't had a choice, but that it's okay to feel you're valid in however you feel about it. It's just a matter of kind of, moving forward, how do you respond to it? Would that be accurate reflection of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we're reflecting and kind of preparing for the new year, like we want to shift our mindset into like setting more intentions. Like sometimes we're so focused on the goal, on the end result, that like we kind of ignore the journey. And sometimes there will be roadblocks along the way that, our journey kind of takes a detour, or we realize that, like COVID, or like, we had all these vacation plans or like exciting celebrations where it's like, well, guess what? Now we have to do a Zoom, birthday, or now we have to, only invite 10 people as opposed to inviting 500 or whatever your guest list look like.
Yeah, so, I have friends who've had to postpone their weddings like about a year back or 2 years back.
Yeah. So it looks different. Like, I think we're all still adjusting to what may be a new decade, a new lifestyle, new ways of, just living and being present for like what life comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I guess the kind of next question and my final question for you both is, what are some various self-compassion tools or strategies that you would recommend people implement or put in practice in their lives?
The one thing that comes to mind when you ask that, Faith, is self-check-ins throughout the day. So asking yourself like what you need, what makes you feel safe, how you're doing, can really help to ground you in the moment throughout the day. I know a lot of people are working from home still, kind of like you mentioned, your friend is working from home. There's a lot of people overworking, kind of working too much or having those blurred boundaries because you're working from home or you're working, with your family. So really just having those self-check-ins and being mindful of your time, of what you're doing, being compassionate to yourself, but also checking in. Are you prioritizing your family? Are you prioritizing your work? Are you, setting healthy boundaries and finding that balance, and being compassionate to yourself through that process, because it's hard. And I think with the new year, there's going to be a lot of intention setting for next year of, I want to achieve this, or, I want to lose weight, or I want to, whatever those goals are, and checking in and making sure they're realistic, and making sure that you have milestones that you're making on that journey, and being nice to yourself in the process.
Just to kind of add to that, something that I've been hearing more and more lately is, and it's something that I'm planning to talk a little bit about on future episodes, Coping Together, and some that we talked about already, but that when you go into New Year's resolutions, a lot of times I think we do have these big built up ideas, and that it's almost like you have to break it down to be fair to yourself in the process. Like you can't just expect to suddenly start working out every single day. Like you can get hurt doing that so quickly. You can, you know, fall out of the pattern of doing it and be really hard on yourself. And so I think that what you're saying, having these, you know, objectives, these milestones is important, because it's kind of like you're not necessarily looking at it as this big, very far away door that you're trying to get to. It's like you're hitting little milestones. Like I kind of imagine it like you're on a highway and you see the mile markers.
It's a journey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess it is a journey.
Right? It's like breaking it down into smaller trips.
Yes, absolutely. So sorry, Juanita, if I interrupted you.
No, you're great. Yeah, just to piggyback on what Miranda was saying, it was just, you know, setting daily intentions. Like sometimes we're so caught up on like the end goal that we don't take a moment to just enjoy the journey. Like when we GPS where we're going, like, are we really like noticing what's in our surroundings? Like, what did we pass by that maybe would be interesting to check out next time? So just being present. And also some of the tips I had was like, you can create a vision board. Like it's important to remind yourself of what your long-term goals are, but also be open to like, hey, maybe this is an opportunity to also learn like other things that I like or dislike throughout this journey. So
I'm so glad you said that, just real quick, because for all of you watching, we're actually going to have a guest in about a week or two, where we talk about vision boards and we talk about how that kind of plays a role into our goals and whatnot. So that was just my kind of little plug. Sorry about that.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Is it going to be virtual, Grace?
Yeah, it's going to be.
I'm sorry. Is it going to? We'll redo that. Is it going to be virtual, Faith?
Yeah, you're good. A lot of people do it. Yeah, so it's basically going to be someone we've had on the show before who comes in, and we're going to talk about what they are, and then kind of get an idea of, through her own demonstration of like, what does one look like? And kind of stressing that everyone's can look different. You don't have to follow an exact structure necessarily. But it's a good starting point to kind of, I like to think that I'm a very visual learner. So I like to see one to get an idea of it. Otherwise, I'll sit there and stare at a piece of paper and be so overwhelmed with all the options I have. And I think that kind of plays a role into sometimes our expectations of ourselves, because we want to do such a great job. We want to get to that goal. I've had that with wanting to get fit or work out. I'm so overwhelmed by all the options of exercises I can do that I have at times been like, I don't know. I just don't know what to do. So I think that kind of goes back to having those realistic and achievable, feasible objectives for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just giving yourself options. Like sometimes, you know, you think like, okay, I need to go to the gym 3-4 times a week, but really like, do you have time? Like maybe you could just do a few exercise or stretches at home, or maybe you could take your dog for a walk. Yeah. So like, just look at different options. Like it doesn't have to be tunnel vision goals where it's like, I must do this, or if not, like that goal isn't, you know, checked off my list or checked off the boxes that I've created for myself.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is important, because we're not saying don't have goals at all. We're saying it's good to have goals. Absolutely. But it's even better to, like Miranda said, to have those little like small trips on your way to the big complete journey. And I think that also goes back to appreciating the journey as a whole. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, and I think it's finding the balance between self-compassion and self-discipline, because sometimes we get very self-disciplined and we'll say things to ourselves like, I must go to the gym, and then you go to the gym even though maybe you're sore, you're tired, or you're thirsty and you need to stop that workout and drink some water, you know. And so it's really finding that balance between that self-discipline and the self-compassion on that journey. Because I know what I've seen is sometimes we get very wrapped up in the discipline that it'll burn us out, right? So then we're going to the gym 5 days a week for a month straight, and then we're exhausted emotionally, physically, mentally, and then we're on the couch eating potato chips the next day, right? And so it's really finding that balance of, what can I do right now? What fits into my lifestyle, and being gentle to ourselves along that way so that we don't burn out or become overwhelmed.
Yeah. And like the best example I can say is like, it's a journey, it's not a destination, although sometimes our mind thinks that it is. And like, just envision yourself going on I-4. There's so many construction. You're going to end up somewhere else because your GPS is telling you to go here, and then that exit no longer exists. So be open to adapting, be open to, the changes that come our way. Sometimes they're awkward changes, sometimes they're fun, sometimes they make us uncomfortable, but they do build us and shape us to who we need to become long term. And then sometimes our new selves, it helps us improve who we are, and like maybe we appreciate the journey throughout that.
I think that's kind of a really perfect way to end this episode. I think you've answered all of my questions, and I just really appreciate you both for coming on here and talking with us. Because I think that's something that, in going back to being kind to ourselves, it's about being, again, we said, I keep hearing the words like feasible and attainable, and these little small trips can really help us. Like you said, the roadblocks can really help us in developing who we are, whether it's, a roadblock with work. 2019 or 2020 has been a roadblock in and of itself, I think. And so now it'll be interesting moving forward into 2021 to see, what happens. I think a lot of us are feeling a bit better with the concept of there being a vaccine. But I think we also know that there's still some things that have changed that I think will not ever really go back to the way they completely were. I think a lot of people will maybe work a bit more from home or do a bit more half and half of that. And so I just really resonate with what you're saying about being understanding of the fact that every year, every goal that you have, you're going to hit those roadblocks. You're going to get steered off the track by your GPS or whatever it is. And it's just about, I think, again, going back to being kind to yourself and also practicing that self-discipline. Yeah, everybody's good at that. Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you both for being here and talking with me about this. For everyone at home, thank you for watching, or at work, wherever you are. We really appreciate you watching. If you have any topics that you want to see, please reach out to us at the Mental Health Association. If you're feeling like you are overwhelmed or stressed or struggling with any kind of mental health, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to get you connected with wonderful places such as Positive Behavioral Solutions. And it's okay to get help, 100%. That's something that we can't stress enough. I think we all can admit that we all needed help at some points. And we probably will in the future. So please feel free to reach out to us. I'll include our information as well as Positive Behavioral's information in the comment section below. And to Miranda and Juanita, thank you so much for being here again. And I will see you all next time.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
New Year.